The wind screamed across the barren plains, sweeping dust over the blackened remains of a once proud ranch. The air smelled of smoke, ash, and something older, loss. A girl walked through it all, stumbling more than stepping. Her name was Clara Hale. Her dress, torn at the seams, clung to her skin where dried blood had turned brown. The sun had not been kind to her, neither had life. She carried a revolver, rusted and heavy, her father's name faintly scratched into the grip. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to keep moving. Each step was a defiance of death itself, and death was close, close enough that she could feel its breath. Her lips were dry, her throat cracked. She stopped beside a charred fence post, looking down at the dirt road winding ahead. It was endless, cruel, and silent. The wind carried voices, or maybe she imagined them. Her mother's words still echoed inside her skull. Stay alive, Clara. No matter what it takes. She'd tried. She'd run. But the men who came that night took everything. The house, her parents, her sister. Only the flames had stayed behind, dancing in her memory. She sank to her knees and pressed her palms against the cold earth. For a moment, she wanted to stop breathing. She wanted the world to go quiet forever. But when she looked up, a hawk circled high above, its cry piercing the silence. Somehow, that sound pulled her back. Life still had a pulse, faint as it was. The horizon shimmered. A shape moved in the distance. A horse. Her hand gripped the revolver instinctively. The figure approached slowly, dust-covered, hat pulled low, long coat swaying with each step. A cowboy, maybe a drifter, maybe something worse. She raised a gun, arms trembling. The man stopped 10 paces away. "You look half dead," he said, his voice gravelly calm. "Put that down before you drop it on yourself." "Stay back," Clara rasped. The words scraped her throat raw. He lifted both hands, showing he meant no harm. "Ain't planning on hurting you." His eyes, gray like storm clouds, studied her carefully. "You got a name?" She didn't answer. The revolver shook in her grip. Her knees gave out, and she fell to the ground. The man caught her before her head hit the dirt. "Easy," he muttered, laying her down gently. "You're burned up, starved, and scared. I've seen that look before." When she woke, it was night. The crackle of firelight flickered against the inside of her eyelids. She opened them to see him, still there. He sat near the fire, sharpening a knife, his horse tied nearby. The smell of cooked beans hung in the air. "Figured you'd wake up hungry," he said without turning. She didn't speak. Her throat still felt like sandpaper. He handed her a tin cup of water. "Go slow. Too fast, and you'll lose it." She drank, careful, each drop a miracle. When she finally spoke, her voice was a whisper. "Why'd you help me? Guess I still got a bad habit of not letting people die when I can help it." He paused. "Name's Elias Boone." She studied him under the firelight, dusty boots, worn coat, revolver at his hip. The kind of man who'd seen things he didn't talk about. "I didn't ask for help," she said softly. He shrugged. Didn't ask for thanks either. The silence between them was long. The fire cracked. The night coyote howled in the distance. Clara looked at her reflection in the metal cup. Filthy face, bruised lips, tangled hair. She didn't look like the girl who used to ride horses and laugh under the cottonwoods. That girl was gone, burned with the house. "I'm not pretty," she whispered, more to herself than him. Elias looked up from the knife. His gaze was steady, unreadable. "That's so." She nodded, eyes downcast. "Used to be, maybe, before everything." He tossed a twig into the fire. Sparks shot up, dancing like ghosts. "I ain't looking for pretty," he said quietly. "Pretty fades. Why needs honest? Honest don't burn away." She stared at him, not sure what to say. The words sank deep, past the hurt, past the scars. They sat like that for a long time. Two broken souls lit by a dying fire, surrounded by miles of silence. In the distance, thunder rumbled over the plains, low and slow, like the growl of something ancient waking up. When she finally lay down to sleep, the wind had softened. The stars above stretched endless and cold. She clutched the revolver close, but for the first time since the fire, she didn't feel alone. Somewhere beyond the horizon, danger waited. But for this one night, there was warmth. There was truth. And for a girl who thought she'd lost both, that was enough to keep her breathing till morning. The morning broke harsh and dry, sunlight spilling across the endless expanse of yellow grass and red stone. Clara stirred, squinting against the brightness. Her body ached everywhere, arms, back, legs, but she was alive. Elias Boone was already up, rolling up his bedroll with the calm precision of a man who'd done it 1,000 times before. His horse snorted softly beside him, tethered to a post buried in the sand. "We're moving," he said without looking at her. "Trading posts 60 miles west. Water's short, so keep it slow." She nodded, clutching her revolver. The fire pit still smoked faintly. She thought of asking him why he was helping her, but she could tell by his face that words were currency he didn't spend easy. The two walked side by side, though a few feet of silence hung between them. The trail wound through arid gullies, where the bones of buffalo lay half-buried beneath dust. The wind had no mercy here. It stripped a person down to whatever truth was left inside. By midday, the sun punished them. Elias offered her a sip from his canteen, the last of their water. She hesitated. "You'll need it more," she said. He shook his head. "Ain't about need. It's about keeping both of us standing." The taste was warm and metallic, but she swallowed it like it was gold. That afternoon, they reached a dry riverbed. The cracked earth told its own story. Rain hadn't touched this place in months. As they crossed, Elias knelt suddenly, tracing something in the dirt. "Tracks," he muttered. 3 riders. Heavy horses. Bandits, maybe. Clara's stomach tightened. Her mind flashed back to fire, screams, the insignia carved into the bandit leader's belt buckle. A jaggedness. She forced the memory down. "They're heading west, too. Looks that way. We'll keep north till the trail splits." They kept moving. Hours stretched thin. A hawk's shadow glided across the sand. By evening, they found a dry gulch where a few stunted shrubs offered shelter. Elias started a small fire using flint and a handful of brush. Clara watched him work. There was no wasted motion in the man. Every move clean, precise, like his soul had been tempered in silence. After dinner, just hardtack and jerky, they sat staring at the fire. The night hummed with unseen things. "You ever lose anyone?" she asked quietly. He paused mid-bite. "Lost more than I remember." She studied his face. The scars near his temple weren't from accidents. "War." He nodded. "Union cavalry. Fought in places that don't matter anymore." Afterward, I just kept riding. Couldn't stand still long enough to remember the faces. Clara looked into the fire, voice trembling. "They came for our ranch at night. Said my father owed them for cattle he never sold. He tried to reason with them." Her throat tightened. They didn't listen. Elias poked the fire. Sparks lifted into the dark. Worlds full of men who think Takin is easier than Irnin. For a while, neither spoke. The sound of the wind carried through the canyon like an old ghost. The next morning, they broke camp early. The sky had turned the color of steel. As they crested a ridge, a flicker of movement caught Clara's. A wild Mustang herd kicking up dust in the valley below. Elias grinned for the first time. "If we catch one, we ride instead of walk." The chase began sudden and brutal. The Mustangs thundered through the ravine, hooves striking sparks from the rock. Elias moved like part of the wind, roping, dodging, shouting commands to his horse. Clara followed on foot, her breath ragged, rifle gripped tight. When one stallion broke from the herd, Elias went after it, rope swinging. The horse bolted toward Clara, nostrils flaring. She raised the rifle, fired a warning shot, and the echo rolled through the canyon. The stallion reared, and Elias's lasso found its neck. Dust exploded around them as man and beast fought for dominance. Minutes later, the Mustang stood panting, wild eyes rolling but restrained. Elias, sweating and breathless, gave a short laugh. "Didn't think you'd hold your nerve." Clara shrugged, catching her breath. "Didn't think I'd have any left." That night, they rested near an old wagon skeleton half buried in the sand. Inside, they found a child's toy horse, carved from wood. The sight hollowed Clara's chest. She buried it beneath a flat stone, whispering something too soft to hear. As the sun set, Elias watched her from the fire. She noticed, but didn't look up. Later, as darkness deepened, Clara saw it, carved into a nearby tree trunk, a jaggedness. Her breath caught. It was the same mark the bandits left at her ranch. "They're close," she said, voice shaking. Elias studied the mark. "Could be old." "No," she insisted. "They're heading west. Same as us." He sighed, rubbing his jaw. "Then we'll go around. Not worth the blood." Her eyes flashed. "You'd run from them?" "I'd rather live than die, proving I'm right." "You don't understand," she snapped, voice trembling. "They killed my family." He met her gaze, calm but firm. "And if you die chasing ghosts, what good'll that do your folks?" She turned away, fists clenched. "You sound like a coward." His voice hardened. "You think bravery's about bullets? I've seen enough graves dug by folks who thought that." The argument ended in silence. She rolled on her side, tears she refused to show soaking the dirt beneath her cheek. Later, when she thought he slept, she heard him whisper to the fire, voice low and cracked. "You ain't wrong to want justice. But don't come easy or clean." She closed her eyes, pretending to sleep, but his words stayed with her. Maybe he wasn't running from the bandits. Maybe he was running from something inside himself. When dawn came, they rode on the Mustang together, the wind sharp and cold. Neither spoke. The sky burned orange behind them, and far ahead, buzzards circled over the next valley. Elias glanced toward the horizon and said quietly, "You can't fix what's gone, Clara, but you can decide who you'll be after." The words hung in the air like a promise or a warning. She didn't know which. As the sun sank behind the distant mesas, Clara looked west and felt a storm gathering, not in the sky, but deep within her. The storm rolled in like a living thing, dark, restless, full of teeth. By the time Clara and Elias reached the old silver mine, the sky was black with thunder. Wind screamed through the canyon, ripping dust into spirals that clawed at their faces. The Mustangs snorted nervously as lightning carved the horizon open, white against the dark. Elias reined the horse to a stop, scanning the jagged ridge ahead. "This is it," he said, voice nearly drowned by the wind. "Bandits camp here when they're running from the law. I count 3 fires, maybe 5 men." Clara slid off the horse, her revolver trembling in her hand. 5 men, she repeated, as though the number alone could burn itself into her courage. "You sure you want this?" Elias asked, loading his rifle with slow, deliberate hands. She looked out into the storm. "They took everything. I can't keep running." He nodded once. "Then we do it quiet. Fast. No noise till I say." They crept along the rock wall, rain stinging their faces. The firelight ahead flickered, silhouettes moving against it. Men laughing, one sharpening a blade, another tossing whiskey from a bottle. Clara's heart thudded like a drum in her chest. Through the downpour, she saw it. An insignia carved on the bandit leader's vest, the jaggedness. Her breath hitched. The world narrowed to that one shape. Elias touched her arm lightly, a silent command. "Wait." But she pulled free. Before he could stop her, she stepped out from behind the rocks, revolver raised. "You remember me?" she shouted, voice slicing through the storm. The laughter stopped. Every head turned. The leader squinted through the rain, then grinned, slow and cruel. "Well, I'll be damned." The Hale girls still breathing. The camp erupted into motion. Guns flashed, thunder roared, and chaos swallowed everything. Elias cursed and fired from cover, bullets snapping through the night. Sparks from the campfire flew as lead struck rock and metal. Clara ducked behind a wagon, breath ragged. The air stank of gunpowder and wet earth. She could hear Elias shouting something, but the storm drowned his voice. Her fingers slipped on the revolver, slick with rain and fear. A shadow loomed. One of the bandits lunged at her, knife glinting. She fired blindly, the shot lighting his face for an instant before he dropped. Her ears rang, her heart screamed. Elias was fighting 2 men near the mine entrance. Lightning split the sky, and she saw him go down, shoulder hit, blood mixing with rain. He staggered, swung his rifle like a club, dropping one man before the next tackled him into the mud. "No!" Clara screamed, running toward them. A bullet tore past her leg, close enough to feel the heat. She dove behind a broken barrel, reloading with shaking hands. The bandit leader appeared in front of her, towering, rain dripping from his beard. "Your daddy screamed louder than you will," he sneered, raising his gun. For a heartbeat, everything froze. The thunder held its breath. Clara saw the pocket watch hanging from his belt, the same one her father used to check before dinner, its brass face dented but shining even now. She aimed at his chest. Her hand shook. "Go on," he taunted. "You ain't got the stomach for it, girl." She stared down the barrel, trembling. Her finger hovered over the trigger. The hate inside her roared, begged for fire. But something in Elias's voice echoed through the storm. "You can't fix what's gone, Clara, but you can decide who you'll be after." Her breath steadied. "You're wrong," she whispered. Instead of aiming at him, she turned the barrel upward and fired at the rope above his head. The bullet snapped it clean, and the suspended mine bucket came crashing down. It struck him squarely, sending him sprawling into the mud, his gun flying from his hand. He lay there stunned, cursing through the rain. Elias stumbled toward her, clutching his bleeding shoulder. "You had your shot," he said, voice rough, half a question. She looked at him, eyes glistening. "I took it." Then a deafening crack split the air. Lightning hit the mine entrance, igniting a crate of old dynamite. The explosion tore the ground open. Fire and smoke roared upward, throwing both of them backward. Clara hit the ground hard, ears ringing, air knocked from her lungs. Through the haze, she saw the camp collapsing, flames licking through the rain. She crawled toward Elias, who lay motionless under a fallen beam. "Elias," she screamed, her voice raw. She heaved the beam with trembling arms until it rolled free. He coughed, eyes fluttering open. "Thought, I told you." "Quiet," he murmured with a weak smile. She laughed through her tears, pressing her hands against his wound to stop the bleeding. "Don't you dare die on me now." He looked up at her, rain running down his face. "You did good, Clara. Better than I ever could have." The mine groaned. The fire spread. She pulled him up, half dragging him toward the ridge. Behind them, the mine collapsed in a thunder of rock and flame. When they finally reached open ground, Elias collapsed again, pale and shivering. She fell beside him, clutching his hand. The storm was breaking now, light bleeding slowly into the clouds. He turned his head, eyes barely open. "Told you before," he whispered, voice fading. "Didn't need pretty, just honest." Her tears fell onto his face, mixing with the rain. "You got that," she said, choking on the words. "You got both." His hand went limp in hers as dawn began to push the darkness away. The storm passed, leaving behind only silence, smoke, and the smell of wet earth. Clara sat beside him for a long time, the world still and empty. The wind tugged at her hair, and far in the distance, the Mustang stood waiting, watching her with quiet eyes. When she finally rose, she took Elias's hat, set it gently over his chest, and whispered, "Rest now, cowboy. I'll finish the ride." Then she turned toward the horizon, where the first light of morning touched the wet plains, and began to walk. The sun climbed slow over the plains, laying gold light across a world washed clean by the storm. Clara rode the Mustang at a steady pace, the wind soft against her face. The land stretched forever, endless and quiet, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. She didn't know how many days had passed since the fire and the fight. Out here, time had a way of losing its edges. The town appeared near noon, a scattering of wood buildings, a water tower, and the faint clang of a blacksmith's hammer. Life moved slow here. A woman swept the porch outside the saloon. A boy chased a dog down the dusty main street. Clara reined the Mustang to a stop near the general store. Her clothes were torn, hat brimmed dark with dust, a revolver holstered at her hip. People looked at her, just a moment, curious, but said nothing. Out on the frontier, everyone had ghosts. Inside the store, the smell of coffee and grain filled the air. She bought a small pouch of beans and some bullets with the few coins Elias had carried. When she handed the money over, the storekeeper squinted at her. "You coming from East Trail?" he asked. She nodded. Bandit's been thick out that way. You best stay in town a while. They won't be a problem anymore, she said softly. He studied her for a moment, something in her tone making him think twice about asking more. She turned and left without another word. Outside, she stood for a moment, looking west. The air shimmered with heat. Every gust of wind lifted the edges of memory. Elias's quiet laugh, his words, the look in his eyes when he said he needed honest, not fancy. By evening, she rode out again, heading toward the ridge beyond the town where the land opened wide. There a lone oak tree stood, bent and stubborn against the wind. She stopped the horse beside it, dismounted, and knelt on the soft ground. A wooden cross stood there, carved by her own hands. She traced the name burned into it. Ibun, the good man. The letters were rough, uneven, but they caught the sunlight. For a long time, she said nothing. The breeze whispered through the tall grass. A hawk circled overhead. Finally, she spoke, voice breaking like thin glass. You taught me more than I ever deserved to learn. You said honesty's what matters. Guess I'm learning how to live with that now. Her fingers brushed the brim of his hat, the one she'd carried since that morning. She laid it at the base of the cross. You didn't die for me, Elias, she whispered. You lived so I'd remember how. She stayed there till the sky turned violet and the stars began to flicker awake. The silence didn't hurt the way it used to. It felt honest. When she finally mounted the Mustang again, she didn't look back. The horse snorted and turned west, hooves striking soft against the dry earth. The trail ahead glowed faintly in the starlight. Days passed. In every town she rode through, whispers followed. The woman who'd faced down the Silver Canyon gang. The girl who rode alone with fire in her eyes. They called her the Scarred Lady, the Ghost Rider, the Hale Girl who lived. Legends on the frontier grew fast, even when born of sorrow. But Clara didn't ride for fame. She rode because it was the only way to keep the ache from closing in. Somewhere in the wide emptiness, she found a strange kind of peace. One night, as the campfire flickered low, she stared into the flames, her face reflected in the light. The scar on her cheek caught the glow like silver. Once, it would have made her hide. Now, she didn't flinch. I'm not pretty, she whispered again, the same words she'd said that first night by the fire. But this time, there was no shame, no tremor, only truth. And I don't need to be. The wind moved through the canyon, soft as a sigh. She swore she could almost hear his voice in it. That's fine. I need honest, not fancy. A small smile touched her lips. She fed another stick into the fire and leaned back against her saddle, the stars vast above her. In the morning, she'd ride again, somewhere new, somewhere unknown. The land had a way of testing what a person was made of, and she'd learned she could take whatever it gave. As dawn crept over the horizon, painting the plains gold once more, Clara mounted her horse and looked out at the world ahead. I'm still here, she said softly, and that's enough. She tugged the reins, and the Mustang broke into a slow gallop, mane whipping in the morning wind. The camera would pull back now, wide shot, one lone rider cutting across a landscape of endless light and shadow. Music swells, soft strings, something bittersweet and strong. The screen fades slowly to black. Then, a voice, calm and reflective, fills the silence. Out here, the frontier don't care what you look like. It cares what you're made of. If Clara's story reminded you what strength really means, hit that like button, share it with someone who's fighting their own storm, and subscribe for more tales from the wild places, where scars aren't shame, they're proof you survived. The last sound before it fades completely is the wind, carrying her name through the plains, over the horizon, into legend.